Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about Norma verticalis. Now Norma verticalis is the superior view of the skull, and in the superior view you can see upper portion of the frontal bone. So this is the frontal bone and its upper part is seen. Then upper part of the parietal bones. Now these are parietal bones, you can see over here. So its upper portion is visible from above, and similarly this is squamous part of the occipital bone. So portion of the squamous occipital bone over here you can see that is also included in Norma verticalis. So four bones are visible, namely frontal bone, two parietal bones and upper part of the squamous occipital bone. Now let's see the sutures. Now this is frontal bone. So between frontal bone and parietal bones you can see over here this is coronal suture, which is coronally oriented. Now second suture is between two parietal bones, this one. This is in the midline, this is in the mid sagittal plane, and so as the name given to it is sagittal suture. So this is sagittal suture, and over here you can see between squamous occipital bone and parietal bones there is another suture on either side. Now this is called as lambdoid suture. So mainly three sutures are visible in Norma verticalis: the coronal suture, sagittal suture and lambdoid sutures. Sometimes in 3 to 8% of individuals an additional suture is observed over here dividing two frontal bones, and that is termed as metopic suture. Now let's see bony features or bony landmarks. Now if you see the top view from side, the highest point somewhere over here of the vault, it is termed as vertex. So here somewhere will be the vertex, that is the highest point or summit of the arch. Now over here the meeting point of the coronal suture with the sagittal suture, over here this point is termed as bregma. Now over here in initial years of life up to 1.5 years there is a diamond shaped gap, and that is termed as anterior fontanelle, which gets fused. So this is a site of anterior fontanelle, and in adult it is termed as bregma. Similarly, when the sagittal suture meets lambdoid sutures over here, this point is termed as lambda, which is again a site of posterior fontanelle, which gets fused at 1 to 1.5 months of the life. Now just in front of it over here you can see two foramina are found approximately 1.5 inches in front of the lambda. On either side of the midline in the parietal bone, two parietal foramina are observed. Now these will allow passage of an emissary vein which will connect the scalp with the superior sagittal sinus. Now if you observe the sagittal suture between two parietal foramina, it becomes more or less straightened. Now that is a peculiarity. Now the portion of sagittal suture midway between the parietal foramina, this is termed as obelion, and which is considered as a site of degenerated third eye. Now on either side in the parietal bone, if you see from above, you can see a clear-cut convexity, a bulge, and that bulge is termed as parietal tuber or parietal eminence, and this is a common site of fracture. And between the parietal tuber or parietal eminence you can take maximum transverse diameter. So obviously it's not in the midline. So if you see the skull from above, anteriorly it is tapered and posteriorly it is broad. Similarly, portion of two temporal lines is also observed. Basically the temporal lines are observed in Norma littoralis, but portion of it is also observed in Norma verticalis. So there are two temporal lines, namely superior and inferior temporal lines. They commence from the zygomatic process of frontal bone. This is frontal bone and this one is its zygomatic process. This is zygomatic bone. So from over here you can see a line starts, and that is a temporal line initially, When it reaches to the coronal suture, it clearly distinguishes into superior and inferior temporal lines. The superior temporal line will fade posteriorly, whereas the inferior temporal line will run again downward and forward. So the superior temporal line will provide attachment to epicranial aponeurosis and temporal fascia, whereas the inferior temporal line will limit the attachment of temporalis muscle. So portion of superior and inferior temporal line is also observed in Norma verticalis. So this is about Norma verticalis. Hope you have understood well. Thanks for watching.